The bang noise that happened when this tire came off, it sounded like the tire exploded. It was terrifying. I mean, I can't even describe to you the feeling of being in a truck that big that's sliding and fishtailing. You're not sure what's going on, and it's just metal grinding noise on an interstate. This must have destroyed the back of our camper.
How do we make sure we're safe, and how do we tackle the situation? How do we get this tire off the roof? It is very dangerous, so we call the cops just to get somebody to come out and kind of block the lane.
The truck is sitting on its rotor. It just could have gone so differently, and we're really happy that we didn't get hurt, that nobody else got hurt.
So now we're like scrambling. Can we do the job? Are we gonna have to get this thing towed all the way back to New York? He might not be able to get any lugs on this thing. And then we're like in a really tough recovery situation.
One of the lugs must have got loose and then they started rolling.
So a wheel fell off the Unimog. That's the basis of what happened. We didn't get into collision or anything. It was just an accident that involved only us, thankfully. And so before we say anything, everybody is fine. Drew and I are both fine. Nobody else was injured, and the truck is okay. So we just want to get that out of the way right off the bat. But we did get into a bit of a predicament on the highway.
Yeah, it was unexpected and dangerous, but ended up being nobody else really involved in the accident, which was huge.
We were on an interstate going through Ohio at rush hour in the rain. The wheel came off. It hit that external storage box right behind where the wheel sits, kind of dropped to the ground. We also dropped to the ground and skidded on our rotor onto the side of the road. So that's really what happened, and now we're going to tell you a little bit of backstory and kind of how we got to this point. We're now back in New York at the workshop, but we were out west, and specifically we were in Wyoming, and we were doing kind of a half rebuild of a friend's camper. You've seen her in our videos before. She has this Wildlands crew buggy. Is that what it is? It's red and white, kind of looks like a fire truck, super cool vehicle. So we were just doing a few projects for her in her build, and then we were going to take back off to New York for the summer.
We just came out of a really busy stretch in Utah where we were shooting a lot of footage, and we had a pretty tight timeline to get up to Wyoming for a small window to get this work done, help our friend out. So we were kind of run down heading up there, and
Very much so, yeah.
yeah, bad timing because we were both kind of sick, like right when we got there. I was sick right before.
Yeah.
So like the day we got there was when I started to get a bit better, and then you got really sick.
Yeah, doing a build when you have a nasty cold, it sucks. It's really bad.
So we got the work done on the truck in Wyoming. We spent about a week there, but then we had to get back east pretty quickly for other obligations. So we kind of were just grinding all day, every day over there, getting through a sickness. So now it was time for us to start driving back east, and we had a few days to get to where we needed to be. We're pretty worn out and run down from just being sick and doing the work and just already kind of driving a lot right before that. We did pretty much our usual pre-trip stuff before we left, check fluids, oil, stuff like that. And I even did check the lug nuts, which is kind of the crazy part of this whole thing. And everything looked fine. So we figured we'd get down the road, start heading east, but we had about 2,000 miles to go.
Yeah, this was a long stretch of highway driving. I mean, Wyoming to New York. We had several days, and we were just worn down, so we weren't doing our due diligence daily. I mean, every morning we should have been checking those lugs. And even though we did before we left Wyoming, we were feeling so poorly and so run down that we weren't being as diligent as we normally are. It's crazy because we have the directional arrows, and most times that I get out of the truck, I kind of take a look at those directional arrows, and so does he. The lugs must have been loosening, and we just didn't catch it.
Usually when we're crossing the country, particularly the middle of the country, we're going pretty fast. We'll just drive all day, get in late, sleep, get up early, and drive again. And we were on a timeline here that we needed to do that. in retrospect, this is probably the scenario where something like this can happen the most, because you're just doing hundreds to thousands of miles of slow rumbling. So if you do get anything loose, like a lug nut, if that happens, it's just going to keep going, and eventually they're all going to get loose. Didn't notice anything in the morning, and then it was about rush hour. We were one exit away from actually stopping to get dinner, and coming out of a congested area, so pretty slow, and I remember starting to accelerate again, probably only going like 30 at this point, maybe get up to 40.
Which is what really saved this situation.
Yeah.
You know, we actually weren't going full highway speed. We were coming out of a construction zone. We were probably going at most 45 miles per hour, which is what made this situation not catastrophic.
So we're coming out of this construction zone and we're starting to accelerate. We're maybe getting 40, 45 miles per hour. And I can feel as I'm accelerating, the truck's not propelling correctly. It feels a little bit weird. I say something to Savannah, I'm like, I'm going to pull over. Something feels weird, kind of loose. And maybe not 2 or 3 seconds later, boom.
It happened on his side, so I couldn't see what happened. I thought maybe somebody hit us from behind. It was my first thought. But the bang noise that happened when this tire came off, it sounded like the tire exploded. It was loud and it was jarring because the back end just dropped right to the ground. We dropped onto our rotor, essentially. Yep. And it was terrifying. I mean, I can't even describe to you the feeling of being in a truck that big that's sliding and fishtailing. You're not sure what's going on, and it's just metal grinding noise on an interstate. It is just such a scary feeling.
Fortunately, we're not going incredibly fast. And yeah, you were on the other side of the vehicle, so you probably didn't feel that drop as much as I felt it.
I felt enough.
You felt enough.
Yeah.
But I'm able to steer it off into the shoulder. We have enough momentum still going. It's probably just skidding on the rotor at this point. Kind of realized that after by looking at it. And it's just like cutting through the asphalt, basically. So I get over. And we're off the main road at least. So now it's assess what just happened. Well, yeah, we lost a wheel. Okay, where's our wheel? And where do we go from here?
In my mind, this must have happened pretty quickly because Drew never mentioned anything about the truck handling funny, and it never felt like it was vibrating weird, which is one of the symptoms of a tire issue. And you would think if the lugs were loosening or breaking off, some kind of vibration would happen, but we just didn't feel anything. It was so immediate. My next thought, upon skidding to a stop on the side of the road, is that this must have destroyed the back of our camper. That the bottom driver corner of our camper must be just completely busted out, because the tire weighs like 200 and something pounds. So without seeing it first, that was one of my first thoughts.
Felt the thing going. I should have got over, because one of the lugs must have got loose and then they started rolling.
But we put the flashers on, we get out, and we see the tire laying on its side in the road. What essentially happened is that it came off the truck while we were moving, so it bounced back and up into the storage box that we have right behind that wheel. And that really stopped all its momentum, and it just fell onto its side. So it was only a little ways back from where we were, but nobody would stop. This was rush hour right outside Cleveland, and so nobody would stop. Everyone was just driving around the tire, and a trucker had to block in front of the tire. He blocked off like 2 lanes with his truck so that Drew could walk over, pick the tire up, and wheel it back to us, because everybody was just in a rush and nobody would stop. We couldn't even get to the thing in the road.
Yeah, typical rush hour traffic in a big city. Everyone's oblivious to what's happening. They're just trying to get home, right?
The storage box is just decimated. I mean, it got hit by that giant tire, but luckily nothing inside the box was damaged. Our chainsaw was in there. It was kind of our garage, like all the oils and spare truck parts. So everything was fine and nothing fell out, but the door was ripped off, and of course the box was completely ruined. We have to remake it.
Yeah, remarkably, the thing stayed in there, because that was my next thought. Where's all of our tools and stuff? Because there's a lot of tools in that box. That's kind of what it is. But it got kind of smushed on itself, and there's a chainsaw that's across the front, and that got kind of locked in, which I think held everything in there. I don't think anything came out of it. It's just crazy. So that was actually really good, because we needed some of those tools for the next step. Now, how are we going to recover the situation?
So it's just pouring down rain.
Gotta be pouring every time.
I mean, buckets of water, like torrential downpour level rain, of course.
And super busy, because it's rush hour. It's basically Cleveland. So yeah, the next step is like, how do we make sure we're safe, and how do we tackle the situation? Well, we have everything to change a tire, and we have a jack, and we have a way to get the tire off of the roof, which people always ask us. Yeah, we finally get to use that truck bed crane. Before even getting out of the cab, we're thinking about it, and I'm thinking about getting the spare on, and then I'm thinking, those lug nuts are gone. And they were. Who knows where those are? They're way back. You're not going to go collect those off the highway. Even if you do, they're damaged. They're ruined. What we found out later, what happened was the wheel started moving, bored out the holes on the wheel, and then stripped out the thread on the studs, which this was actually going to be a really big problem just to even get off the road. First, we're not even there yet. We're figuring out how to get this tire off the roof. How do we get safe? It is very dangerous. So we call the cops just to get somebody to come out and kind of block the lane. Eventually he gets there and he's trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can get the other wheel on and we can get off the road. We just need to get the wheel on there to get a mile up to the exit and get off of the highway, then really deal with the problem. Because right now it's very dangerous to be here and the traffic's crazy. So he's like, all right. He kind of butts his car into the lane, eventually puts some flares up. So then I start the process of getting the spare wheel off of the roof and trying to jack up the truck so we can get the spare on just to get to a safer place.
I'm just happy that we had practiced this before, getting the tire off the roof, because we had to do it on the side of the road in rush hour in a downpour. And that's why they always tell you to practice that sort of stuff, because when you actually need to do it, it's going to be 9 times out of 10 less than ideal conditions, and it was.
Yeah, high stress situation. I think this is worse than this happening off-road probably almost time, right? 9 times out of 10, you'd say? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because if we were off-road, we would have been going slower, and it wouldn't have been so busy.
Yeah. But yeah, really stressful. So I'm up on this roof. I'm just like trying to stay composed and think everything out. Just going through what you got to do, unbolting the thing, and thinking about like, how's this going to play out? What's the next move? Okay. So we do finally get the tire down, and we begin to jack the truck, and kind of quickly realize the jack's not going to travel that far. The jack is meant to lift the truck a small amount when it is already on all 4 wheels, just to get the wheel off. You really only have to lift it a couple inches. This situation, we have to lift it about 20 inches.
You can see in all the footage, the truck is sitting on its rotor. If the rotor wasn't there, it would be sitting on the axle on the ground. And we have so much clearance that to lift the truck back up to the point where we can get the tire back on, it had to travel such a huge distance that we didn't have a jack that would cover that many inches.
Well, it's fundamentally a problem. I don't know that there's a jack that could even really do it, because the issue is if you're on the ground, you have to get the thing underneath it, right? So even where it starts to go up a bit, you can barely get the jack under there. But now you need a jack that can travel that far, but you can't get a jack that big under that gap. So I don't even know that it's really possible. Maybe if you're like in a shop, sure.
We tried a lot of things here to be able to get this spare tire back on the truck. We used the jack that we do have to lift the axle enough that we could slide the damaged tire and rim underneath the axle, so that then maybe it could hold the truck while we then jacked it up further, while we blocked up the jack and lifted it further. But we didn't have enough blocks. We just couldn't get the jack high enough.
Yeah, we pretty quickly figured out what needed to be done, and we're trying to use what we had available, and we got close. But yeah, even the spare, or the damaged wheel actually, with that then resting on the axle, and then trying to jack up off of that at a different point and using leveling blocks, everything we had.
Everything.
We still couldn't quite get there. We were close, but probably still like 4 or 5 inches away. So at this point, we realized we're not going to be able to get this truck lifted up without more equipment on our own. So we talked to the officer, and he calls a roadside guy who deals with these sort of situations. They come out, and we kind of talked through it with them. It was kind of confusing at first, but once we explained what was happening, they sort of got what was happening. And the guy, the like mechanic roadside recovery guy, you could tell he's been through these kind of games before. First thing he did is he had a pretty big truck. He put that in the lane, which made everybody feel a lot safer because he was really kind of blocking the traffic off. And he started going with his like pneumatic jack, and I'm like, oh, maybe that one will go. And then he quickly realized, oh, you can't do it with one. So he's got these big blocks, so he jack it, big wooden block. But then he eventually had to use 2 jacks, like alternating with them blocked up. And that was the only way you could do it. And this is something we learned. Now we know that. And we now have 2 jacks.
We do.
Once the roadside guy gets the truck jacked up enough where we can try to get the spare wheel on there, yeah, we're realizing how damaged all of these threads are actually. And are we even going to be able to get the wheel on there? We got to take a couple of the nuts off of other wheels just so we have some, because we didn't have backup ones. The other ones are gone on the highway and damaged anyhow. He gets one on, gets another, and then he's having trouble getting any of the other ones to go on because they're so bad. Eventually, with an impact driver, he's able to kind of force it and get just enough like thread cut on there. So there's 3, which is the absolute like minimum you could try to drive away with, I think.
Yeah.
He gets 3 barely on there. Like they're just basically cranked on there and mechanically welded at this point, probably cross thread and everything. They're obviously damaged, but he gets 3 on there. That was probably actually the scariest part for me. After like the initial thing was like, he might not be able to get any lugs on this thing. And then we're like in a really tough recovery situation because we don't have a wheel on the vehicle to even like get it on a tow truck. And tow truck is already challenging with the Unimog because you need like a low boy. So where the bed is lower because we're pretty tall. A normal flatbed, if there's any kind of overpass that isn't really high, that's potentially a problem. So that point was really stressful for me. We can now try to very slowly just get to the next exit and get off the highway. The other guy ends up accompanying us and being pretty helpful. He gives us a place to park for the night that we're not going to get bothered. It was like an ice rink or something.
Yes.
He knew the owner or something.
Yep, he knew the owner of the ice rink. Thank you so much to all of these people that helped us. This was a really stressful situation. The officers, the roadside assistance guy, the owner of the tow company. I mean, he was able to find us a place to park for the night. And we're just really thankful to everybody in this situation.
Yeah, I was really, really happy that recovery guy was there. Like I said, you could tell he knew what he was doing. Now it's like, okay, this is now like the bigger problem is how do we deal with this? Because it is a Unimog and we're in North America. It's not well supported here. There's, a community and there's places you can get some parts, but how hard is it going to be able to get these new studs? It's probably not easy. So now we're like scrambling for that. Can we do the job? Are we going to have to get this thing towed all the way back to New York? Are we going to have a mechanic help us? And that's that night, a little bit, but the next day was like figuring all this out.
Yeah, we've been on the road 9 years. We've had our fair share of breakdowns and being on the side of the road, and it's never fun. But once you actually get out of the situation, you get off the highway, the work doesn't stop. It actually kind of ramps up because now you got to fix the problem. You have to get towed or fix it, figure out how to get parts. And this is where our friend Nick comes in. Thank you so much, Nick. Huge thank you to Nick. He is a fellow Unimog owner, and he kind of stepped in because he knew that we were stressed and dealing with a lot of moving parts, and he sent us the new studs and nuts that we needed to do the repair ourselves. We could actually do this ourselves. We didn't have to find a shop or somebody to work on it as long as we had the parts that we needed. So we wake up the next morning at the ice rink, and once again, we only have a few nuts on this wheel. We're missing the lug nuts off of the other wheels. We can only go 10 to 20 miles per hour, and we can't go very far. Right down the road is a combo Home Depot AutoZone parking lot. So we think to ourselves, that sounds like a pretty good spot for us to be. And right now we're trying to come up with a mailing address for these parts that are going to get overnighted to us. Finding safe drinking water on the road can be a gamble, and constantly buying bottled water isn't cheap. Since the water that we drink has a big impact on our health, that's one thing we won't leave to chance. So when iSpring offered to send us their new CW31 PFBV 3-stage RV water filtration system to test out, we said yes immediately. Inside the box is a 3-stage tankless filtration system. No bulky tank, just a compact, space-saving design that keeps water pressure steady. It's built for RVs, camping setups, and even home use. Stages 1 and 2 focus on high-efficiency PFAS removal, eliminating up to 99.4% of PFAS, including PFOA and PFOS, so the water's safer and healthier. Stage 3 adds bacteria and virus defense, knocking out up to 99.99% of bacteria and viruses, plus reducing chlorine, odors, and other chemical contaminants. The system's tough, with a BPA-free housing, reinforced frame, and a sturdy metal bracket, ready for high humidity outdoor use. And each filter lasts 6 to 12 months, so it's ideal for long-term, low-maintenance use. Installation was surprisingly easy. First, we connected our hose to the spigot, then the female quick connector to the other end of the hose. Next, the male quick connector threads into the system water inlet port. Now these connect together quickly and easily. We threaded a hose to the other end of the filter and put it directly into our water fill hatch on our camper. Now we can fill our water tank with clean, filtered water that we don't have to think twice about. We love that 3/4 inch lead-free brass quick connect fittings mean you don't need any tools. Just plug it in and you're good to go. With the iSpring 3-stage RV water filtration system, you can have quick access to great tasting, healthy water everywhere you park. You'll know that the water coming from your tank is clean and safe because you're filtering all the water in your system, so even the parts of an RV where water isn't typically filtered are included, like an outdoor shower. Our outdoor kitchen is where we're always making dinner, washing veggies, filling the dog water dish on those hot days, and where we need reliably filtered water. When we had our first van, we never had a water filter, but it's one of those upgrades that can quietly change your whole life. You realize you're not hauling around water jugs or second-guessing the water quality from that sketchy gas station spigot anymore, and that peace of mind is worth it every single day. We would never go back to unfiltered water. For us, a reliable water filter is a must-have on a van build list. Coffee tastes better, cooking simpler, and we don't worry about what's coming out of the tap. This iSpring 3-stage RV water filtration system is backed by a 1-year warranty, lifetime tech support, and over 17 years of iSpring water systems expertise. If you want to check it out, click the link down in the description below. Once we get there, Drew goes into the AutoZone and they start asking you about the truck because we're very visible. We're a bright blue Unimog, and you end up meeting the manager, right?
Yeah.
That's how you met Maggie.
Yeah, and she ended up being amazing. Right away, she goes into help mode. She's trying to see if she can find the parts or if we can make something else work. I'm kind of letting her know it's probably unlikely, but she's even calling like international dealer, like the people that she knew, because they had Unimog for 2 years in the States. And she's like, I know a guy that works over there. Oh, I got a guy at Mercedes. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we'll try it. Anyways, eventually, like, we said our friend's going to send us the parts. So we figure that out. And we talked to her, and she offers to let us use the address to ship them right to the store, which is huge. She says it's fine for us to stay the night. And anything we need, we can come in and use the bathroom, all that. And, I mean, yeah, this lady was so kind. And the whole staff, really. She even was feeding the dogs, like, snacks. When she found out we had little dogs, she was like, oh, bring them in, bring them in. So we're going and bringing the dogs in there. She's feeding them snacks. So that was new friends for Pablo and Mateo.
Maggie is the AutoZone manager of the year. She was just the kindest person. We were at that AutoZone for one full day and another half day. And any chance she got, she would feed treats and like cheese and lunch meat to the dogs. The dogs loved her. I mean, just giving us a mailing address right next to the truck where we didn't have to move, go pick anything up, so that we could get these parts overnighted to us as quickly as possible. That was really what we needed.
For sure. That definitely got a lot of stress off our plate, because now we knew we could really figure out a game plan to try and fix the truck ourselves and not be stressed about, are we going to get harassed where we are? Can we get the parts? So that, it was honestly a huge stress relief. And like, this lady was amazing. You could just tell when I'm in the store, like looking at stuff, people are coming in like regular customers and they're asking for her, and like she treated everybody amazing. And like the people would come to this store specifically in the whole area because of this person.
So we slept the night in that parking lot. The next day the parts come in. We're able to run back and forth from Home Depot and get any little things that we need to do the installation, but we were able to do it ourselves. We removed the old studs and put the new ones in, really just with tools that we had. We didn't have to buy too much.
I think we bought like a heavy hammer for knocking them out, and then we had them at the lumber center cut us a bunch of blocks of wood, so we had something to stack our jack up higher just to make it not have to travel so far. And I think that was about it. But yeah, definitely still, when we start the process, like, is it going to be really hard to get these things out? Is it going to be hard to get them in? It was a bit of a challenge. I did knock them out pretty easily. Getting them back in and correctly took a couple attempts, but we did make it happen. And then we felt comfortable about it after kind of overlooking it a few times.
But let me tell you the spectacle of having a wheel off a Unimog in a Home Depot AutoZone parking lot. I swear to you, we met the entire neighborhood. Everybody came over and wanted to know about the truck, but also, in the nicest way possible, wanted to know if we were okay. People were saying that we could stay with them. They were asking if we needed groceries or if they could get us anything. The kindness of people on the road is just something that has always surprised us. Just with a visual inspection, there didn't seem to be anything bent. I mean, one of our thoughts was that we could have bent something on the axle. You know, we could have really messed up the truck. It's 16,000 pounds and it came down right onto that rotor. So we have a flat spot on the rotor now, but other than that, there's been nothing wrong. It didn't bend the rotor, it didn't bend the axle, the brakes weren't messed up. It was really just the studs, the nuts, and the rim of the wheel. Those were the only issues with the truck. That's crazy. I think the only thing you can say with that is that it's an overbuilt ex-military vehicle.
Yeah, heavy truck, but also incredibly heavy built, like axle and just that whole, everything down there. It's just so heavy duty. I was, pretty surprised that, best we could tell, no damage. Obviously, we still had to drive it, so we were a little nervous because we don't know if there's something we're not noticing.
The studs were in, everything looked good. We got the wheel back on. We torqued the lug nuts to spec. We said goodbye to Maggie and the AutoZone crew, and the only thing left to do was drive back to New York, which, as I mentioned before, we had quite a bit of anxiety around, especially to get back on the highway and get up to highway speed. That was particularly terrifying for the first, I would say, half an hour. It was almost surreal to be going fast in the truck after we'd had a wheel off. It felt like at any moment that could happen again.
That was crazy. Even worse. We didn't know if there's something else damaged that we couldn't tell. So we're just kind of listening and trying to feel, does it feel weird? And any little thing, you're so paranoid at that point. There's a little bump in the road. You're like, oh, is the tire coming off? It's like, no, I think we're good. But
we stopped.
Yeah, we went a little bit, not very far at all, to like the first rest stop, maybe like
15 minutes.
Yeah. Checked the torque on the lugs. Looked at everything, seems to be operating, the wheel seems to be spinning straight, you know, doesn't feel crazy. And I think we then drove another hour or so, did the same thing, because we were pretty uneasy with, hard to tell if there was further damage that we couldn't diagnose. Definitely a bit stressful, but you know, every mile you get a bit more confident and start feeling good about the truck the best you can, at least. Particularly that level of driving, those really long days, just on the highway, it's many miles of slow rattling. Not that you shouldn't always keep an eye on those things, but that's really when you need to check it. You know, if you're a truck driver, you know that you technically have to do a pre-trip inspection like every trip. And it's a good habit to have, and this is not too much different than a big rig like that. So yeah, I think we get more confident with it, or not confident in the truck, but it's left you a little bit like, does that sound weird? Is there a weird shake?
Uneasy, yeah.
And it goes away a bit every time you drive. But yeah, we're definitely pretty in tune with what's going on, and we were before, but apparently not enough that day.
The thing about a Unimog is that driving highway miles is not its forte. It is an off-road machine. It's a road tractor. It's made to be off-road. That's where it shines. And the highway miles are just part of the process that we have to do sometimes to get out west, to travel around. We had driven it across the country 3 times before this. This was our 4th time, and nothing happened on all those other trips. We were checking, you know, which is part of the reason why we wanted to make this video, because when we started telling people this story, friends and family, it seemed like everybody had a story of a wheel coming off a vehicle they had been in, which is crazy. You had been in a vehicle another time, right, when you were younger?
Yeah, kind of a freak event, but like it happens more than you think. Yeah, I was with a friend in high school. We were driving in his car, and I was in the back seat where the wheel came off. We were just coming down a city street, I don't know, not going crazy fast. And boom, obviously not as big of a drop as the Unimog, but you feel it drop and you feel the skid, and we see the wheel go rolling down the street. And I tell the story of what happened with the truck to one of my good friends right when we get home, and he's telling me a story very similar about a wheel running through someone's yard. It's like, oh, this happens more than you'd think. So especially with a bigger vehicle, you want to keep an eye on those lugs and just stay on top of it, I guess.
So this is our PSA. It happened to us. It can happen to anybody, especially if you're in a big truck like ours. But really, if you're in any vehicle, if you're in a van, if you're in a bus, if you're in a car, you're living in an SUV, you're road tripping in your SUV, check the lug nuts. You think it's not going to happen to you, but it can.
All you can do is check stuff. I mean, accidents are going to happen. You put enough miles in on the road, things happen. We had a tire blow on a vehicle one time on a brand new tire, supposedly brand new tire. And it was a bad tire. And we couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't like we didn't check the tire. It wasn't like it wasn't up to air pressure. It just went, and that happens too. So
yeah,
you do what you can.
The thing I think about is that it just could have gone so differently, and we're really happy that we didn't get hurt, the truck isn't more damaged, that nobody else got hurt. This is as good of an outcome as we could have had with having an accident like this. So we're really thankful, we're really grateful to all the people that stepped in and helped us. And check your lug nuts. Check them, torque them to spec. We check them constantly now. Constantly.
Yeah, I mean, all you can do is your best, and that's why they call them accidents, because nobody's planning on it. It's unexpected. Yeah.
All right, that's our story. We wish we didn't have this accident story to tell, but we have taken you through the whole journey with this truck, from importing it to building it to adventuring with it. And so we want to tell you about all the things that happen with it, if only to be a warning of what could happen.
Well, think of the good news. You get to remake that storage box.
Yeah, I do.
Which was kind of a lot of work.
Yes.
So that'll be fun. Plus the material costs. So yeah, look at the positives.
More projects. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Later.